I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Audrey Lingen. I know that you've never met me before.
Hello, Audrey.
I'm Abhinav. I'm the senior class vice president.
Nice to meet you, Abhinav.
Hello, Mr. Spradley. My name is Felix. I'm the student body president.
Hi, Felix. Good to see you. Thank you.
Hi, we definitely haven't met. I'm Caleb Phillips. I teach English here at Westlake, and then I'm also the student council staff advisor. So I get to work with these
Okay.
guys, so
Cool.
yeah.
Good to see. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Sure. So I guess we are missing Ellie Churchill, who I don't know if she'll be joining us today or not. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started.
Sure.
So Mr. Spradley, could you just really quickly kind of talk to us about just why you think it's so important? Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Just talk to us a little bit about your position. Like, what position do you currently have, and then what responsibilities do they entail?
Absolutely. So I'm a school board member here in Eanes ISD. I have been on the school board for about 15 months, I think. Maybe I could do math. Maybe it would be 18. I was elected in May of 2019. The main responsibilities of the school board are to really just like 2 or 3 things. We set the budget and we hire and fire the superintendent. And fire is not the right word. We don't. I'm not implying we're firing our superintendent. But and then the other is to really some high-level policy. We set high-level policy. But we do not really get involved in the day-to-day running of schools. We're not education professionals. We're really members of the community. And so we try to limit our involvement in day-to-day school operations.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And then I think we have a visitor on Audrey's screen. Cool. Then I'll let Audrey kind of take over from here.
All right, for the purpose of our student project, why is it important for students to vote?
I think it's important. I registered to vote when I was a senior in high school, and my first election, I won't tell you who was running because it was so long ago, but I wanted to exercise my vote at that time, and I feel like it's important to vote for a couple of reasons. I think, first of all, every vote counts. And I went and looked at my election in 2019, and out of approximately 25,000 people who live in our school, 25,000, I'm going to think that most of those are voting age people. I think that's what I always thought, 25,000 people who live in Eanes who could vote. Out of all of those, I think about maybe a couple of thousand voted. I actually have the numbers somewhere here on my computer. But it was like, yeah, here it is, 2,979 people voted. So maybe just over 10%. I'm sure someone can do math faster than I can. And I won my election by 385 votes. So I had a 13% margin of victory. But I'll bet if you went to the high school and totaled up the number of people who will be 18 by next May, for example, and can vote, I'll bet that the high school vote could have impacted that greatly. And I do know that some seniors voted for me. I do know that there were high schoolers who voted in that election. But my point is, sometimes elections are very close. And your vote could count. There are probably enough people who sit at home on election day that had they gone out and actually voted, they could have changed a race. And so I think it's really important. Don't think that your vote doesn't count. Never think that. You can't think that. You have to go out and vote because you really can make a difference. And then I think also that my attitude is, I don't think I can complain. I don't think I can complain about what my leaders are doing if I don't vote. If I don't get out there and express what I want, then I don't think that I should complain when I get the results. I also feel strongly, and this is a little bit different subject, that we all have a responsibility to be educated voters. When you go to the polls, you're going to see, especially in November, if you vote, you're going to see, I don't know, maybe 100 different things you can vote for. And you know, you might be voting for dog catcher for all I know. But try to be educated on those things. Try to go in there knowing all those. You don't have to do maybe not a ton of research on dog catcher, for example, but know who you're voting for. And don't just like pick a name. I literally had someone come out I was standing outside on voting day, and I had someone come out and they were like, I voted for you because your name was normal. And I'm like, I don't want you to vote for me because my name is normal. I want you to vote for me because you think I'm going to do a good job. So that's just a couple of perspectives on voting that I have.
Your name is very normal. What words of advice would you give to first-time voters?
I think, first of all, get educated on the candidates and the topics you're voting on. There will be ballot language for maybe some constitutional amendments. Texas is famous for having just tons of constitutional amendments. Our Constitution is such a strange document compared to the U.S. Constitution. The wording in a lot of those things is funny. For example, we're putting an item on the ballot for Eanes ISD that has to do with swapping taxes. Right now, there are two kinds of taxes we raise. One is a tax that pays for maintenance and operations, so it pays for teacher salaries. And the other is called interest and sinking. I know that's a crazy name, but that is what we use to pay for buildings and debt when we build the swimming pool, the wrestling center, the robotics facility, new buildings, new campuses. We're going to swap. We're going to ask the voters to swap and let us, instead of charging, we're going to charge 2 pennies less for interest and sinking and put 2 pennies more into maintenance and operations, so we can have more money stay here that we can use for teacher salaries. The ballot language is terrible on those. The ballot language is just really confusing. And it almost says, are you okay with Eanes raising your taxes? And that's not the exact language. But we're not really doing that because the language is set by the state government. They require us to say certain words. My point is, advice piece number one is get educated on the topics that are on the ballot. Be aware of who's running and what you're voting for. I think number two is kind of a small thing. If you can go to early voting and you're pretty sure you know who you want to vote for, I would go to early voting. And that's become a more and more popular thing, and you may still have to stand in line. But a lot of times on voting day, you're like, I'm going to go vote on that day. But then something comes up. You have an emergency. You've got a special meeting you've got to go to. Something comes up, and it makes it really hard. And you end up, I think the polls close at 7 o'clock, for example. You end up showing up at 6:55, and you're standing in this long line waiting to vote. And so I think that my advice would be vote early if you can, and if you know who you're voting for. Try to think of what else I would recommend. I don't have any other strong recommendations other than maybe those two things. And I don't even know that the voting early is a strong recommendation. I mean, that's just kind of my advice. But be educated. That's my main piece of advice.
And why is it important to participate in local elections?
Even more so, local elections can be decided by just a few votes. When you're talking about millions of people voting in the state of Texas, say for senator or governor or something like that, millions of people, it may not matter, but there are a lot. I'm not saying your vote doesn't matter. I'm saying it probably doesn't have as large an impact. But locally, there have been local city council, probably school board races that have literally been decided by one vote. And so your vote is much more important to those local candidates. I also think that the biggest impacts you're going to feel are probably going to be from your local elected officials. Those are the people who are probably going to have the highest impact on the taxes you pay locally, on the benefits that you get locally, maybe hospitals, transportation, that kind of stuff. And so I think your local election probably impacts you a lot more than the national election a lot of times.
What initiatives have you implemented as your like in your tenure in school board?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think that there have been really three big things that we have tackled over the last year. The first was the Spanish immersion program at the elementary schools. So you're all older and you may not be aware, but we started a Spanish immersion program at our elementary schools. And that was put for a 3-year review. So they were going to run it for 3 years and come back and review it. So we had that in December. The next big thing we did was the budget. And we were, our budget was going to be a few $1 million negative. So we were going to have to overspend a few $1 million. So we had to cut back on a few things, and that was really tough. And then the third thing, I think that the most recent one that you're very well aware of is the one about opening schools back up and what we were going to do with respect to having in-person school and those decisions, which got, frankly, the most email we've ever received has been over the last, say, 2 months, just because people wanting to express their opinion about schools opening. In the past, I think that the school board has faced things like they talked about building another high school about 20 years ago. They talked about grade, the adders for AP classes. They talked about that a few years ago, and that got a lot of attention. You know, the multiplier that you get when you take an AP class, things like that. Those are other things that we've discussed as a board.
When did you begin campaigning for your election, like when you got elected in 2019?
Yeah, I think that if you're interested in running for, say, school board in this case, and so officially January 15th, around the middle of January, you can file your paperwork to run for school board. And you have 4 weeks to do that, and then it closes. And so I officially filed my paperwork mid-January 2019. But I actually started thinking about running for school board in October. So months before that, I started talking to people. And you want to talk to people and say, to your friends, and say, do you think I would be any good at this? Right? You want to know if people think you would be a good person for that office. And then you want to talk, like I talked to a lot of school board members. I wanted to know what they did and what their job was like and what I was getting myself into. And then finally, if you're running for something like a state senator or a state legislator or a big school board race in Austin, you'd probably want to start thinking about how you're going to raise money. So things like that. You're going to meet with people who can give you money.
Will you be running in May?
I'm planning to run in May. Yes.
Okay. And then one final question from me is, why did you specifically want to run for a school board, and what past experiences have you had that prepared you for it?
Yeah, so we've lived in Eanes ISD for 20 years, and I have been very involved in different things in our community, through our church, through Boy Scouts. I was a very involved band parent. We had 2 boys who were in the band, and we were in the band for 8 years back to back. And so I was very involved in that. And a friend of mine, Julia Weber, who was on the school board, and she was a band parent, she came to me and said, James, I'm moving to Paris. Would you consider taking my seat? And so at that time, I started considering it. I think that as I started thinking about why school board, I don't want to be a governor. I don't want to be a senator. I don't want to be president. I don't want to do those kinds of offices. I want to be where I can make a difference in my local community. And that's why school board was the right fit for me. It was a way that I could be involved in something I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about educating youth and having a good education for the people of our community. And that's why I chose school board.
We'd also like to learn a little bit more about your campaigning experience. So what was, in your opinion, the most difficult part of that whole process running for office?
Yeah, I've joked before that it would be easy to be in office if you didn't have to campaign. when I initially filed to run for office, I did not have an opponent. And a lot of times there are no opponents to people when they run for school board. Right now, we have 3 races right now, and only one has an opponent. And so it's kind of unfortunate in a way. I mean, there are good people running, and all 4 candidates who are running are good people. I'm not saying that, it's unfortunate that we don't have opponents for these people. I'm just saying I feel like it makes you a stronger school board member to have had an opponent. I had an opponent. I had to raise money to buy campaign signs and newspaper ads and letters, not email, but I did pay for an email client. I hired a campaign manager. I spent many, many hours campaigning. And when you do a local race, a lot of your campaigning is sitting down and having coffee or a taco or something with someone in the community. And you talk to them about why you want to be on the school board and what's important to you. And then when you're finished, you ask them, hey, do you have anybody you think I should meet with? Another thing that I did, I had a friend in the community, a couple of friends in the community actually hosted house parties where we invited people that they knew to come to their house, and then I was there. And it was the chance for me to tell these people what I believed in and why I thought I would be a good school board candidate. So it was a pretty full campaign. It was probably all of March and April were just chock full of campaigning for me.
I see. And what was like one lesson that you'd like to share with us that you gained from that experience campaigning?
I think be honest. I think it's very important for a candidate to be honest about their beliefs. I'm not sure if you saw the CARE candidate forum the other night. It was a really good forum, and one of the candidates got called out a couple of times for giving very general answers. If you really, and I'm not saying expressing dislike or anything for the candidate. I'm simply talking about how important it is to just really be yourself, express what you believe, express it clearly, and stand behind that. And frankly, if people don't like who I am honestly, the real me, then it's okay. I don't have to be on the school board. But I don't want to become a politician who's fake, who puts on fake things and just says what people want to hear. I want to be an honest politician who tells you really who I am. And you decide if I'm the right person for the job. And that's my strongest advice to anyone running for any office. Be who you are, be honest. And you've all run for office. You've been elected. You know what that's like, right? Don't be fake, be real.
Excellent. And would you also like to share any lessons that you've learned from actually serving on the board?
Sure. I will say, I think it took me about a year to really be comfortable in serving on the school board. I think that in the very beginning, I was intimidated by the important decisions that we were making. I was intimidated by people who had, not by the people, but by the thought that there were people there who had been on the school board for 18 years, lots of experience. Everyone in the room, except for Heather Sheffield, who ran and got elected at the same time I did, but all the other 5 members were much more experienced. And I felt a little intimidated at first. I developed over time, both by the experience of being on the board and really becoming more educated on the issues. I developed into a much more comfortable and I think a very good, effective board member, and learned how it worked and learned how I could affect change within the school board. And so that's my lesson learned is you may come to an office with a lot of experience, and that's fine and that's good, and the voters elected you and they want you to do your job. But you will also grow in your office, and you will learn and be open to those lessons and embrace them and become better because of them.
And as we wrap up our interview today, is there anything else you'd like to share with the Westlake student body?
I would go back to the importance of voting, and I would share with the Westlake student body, it's very important to get registered and to vote. And we don't all agree. We're not all of the same political beliefs. We're not of the same historical perspective on issues. Our parents may not agree with us too. Our brothers and sisters may not agree with us. It's okay. We need to learn to have a civil discussion, educated, and participate. And I would just leave with the Westlake student body, go out and participate, be involved, be an educated voter. And your candidate isn't always going to win, but it's okay. You voted and you participated. And that's the best you can do at this point.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us and just letting us learn a little bit more about your position and your whole experience serving on the school board and campaigning for it.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Anytime anyone can send me an email to my Eanes account, happy to talk to anyone anytime. Thank you very much.